Hi all. So the old girl's back on the floor now. Back end's all back together. The engine's in for the last time. Fingers crossed. We have now made, I'm waiting for some phenolic spacers, but we have now made a permanent mount for the turbo. I went away from having the cold side and basically we've mounted it on the hot side. So ignore the washers, but whatever, 20 mil phenolic spacer, top and bottom, mounted off of there. And then obviously that bolts to the flange of the turbo, so it's a lot more solidly mounted. Obviously we have the in-canal expansion joints, so the engine relationship to the turbo shouldn't change, but if we have any growth in the pipes, the expansion joints will be taken out, plus we'll have another one joint at least on the dump valves. Reasoning to get it back together is it's now got to go and have the exhaust finished off. We have the box mounted. That was the one bit that I need to finish the sort of engineering parts around that and finish the rear frame, or almost finish the rear frame. But now we've got to connect the turbo obviously up to the exhaust and the dump valves, and then for the cables here we have the exhaust bypass valves that'll come from obviously in straight out instead of going through the box. So, and then obviously the two outs to the box will have to come in together and exit out the diffuser. So the diffuser fixings are all done now. There's one job that I was sort of putting off because it was a bit of a pain. All done underneath the car, obviously. So they're now all done. There's one more fix that I'd like to do from there to the center plate where it meets down here. But I've got an idea how to make a profile piece because the plate does stick slightly into the diffuser. I'm going to make a profile piece that basically bolts to the plate and holds the diffuser up at the same time. So a little bit of CNC work on that. We've done some more tidying up on the electrics, put a few more clips and stuff in. We removed the valley plate, drilled and tapped it, so we now have a sensor here, which I've unplugged for some reason. Oh right, yes, it's because I was moving stuff around. We now have this pressure sensor here, which basically will give us crankcase pressure, so or crankcase vacuum in this particular case, obviously because the dry sump system could create a lot of vacuum. We have a vacuum regulator to make sure we don't have too much vacuum in there and wipe out the rings. So we now have a pressure sensor. So basically I can ultimately set the vacuum regulator to what I need. If I need it at all, some people say with a turbo motor you're not going to need it. I'm more worried about low end than I am high end. So, but it's always good to have. Cheap insurance. So yeah, car's back on the floor, lots of stuff, bits and pieces done. PDM, pretty much, I think there's two outputs I've still got to play with, and I'm still on the fence exactly where I'm going. All the wiring at the front here is going to be, I'll probably drop the heater controls out just to make it easier for me, but probably drop the heating system out just to make it easier for me, and then basically we'll disconnect or cut the tie wraps to the where we put mounting points on the chassis, and then we'll wrap all of the cables that'll go through here. Because of the pain in the arse it would be to remove the loom from here. Basically most of the cables that go through here have already been heat shrinked. Have to excuse that one, it's for the door. So as you can see here, most of the cables go through already heat shrink covered, so we're not fussed about those. Obviously everything that goes into the engine bay has all been compiled and heat shrink and pathed. So there's another pressure sensor, which is for the water pressure, just to make sure we got everything we can. Yeah, pretty much happy with the way things are going. Obviously, like before, we've got all the linear potentiometers for the suspension. They're all now back into, they're on the CAN bus. It's the fun stuff next. So basically finishing, what was that? Oh, screw. Finishing the fluid reservoirs. That's going to go behind the access panel in the body, and that's going to sit kind of roughly there. So you won't see them from the outside of the car. You'll have to access a panel to get to that. We have 2 or 3 of the hoses made up for the AC, the to and from the actual evaporator to the compressor, and from the evaporator to the liquid receiver. Until the turbos and everything else finished off of here, I won't bother finally mounting the oil tank and everything else. And the oil tank's got to be pressure tested. I've got to pressure test a lot of stuff now. Fuel tank we've done, obviously before we put it in, but got to pressure test the oil tank, the swirl pot for the water system, which obviously I welded up, and the radiator, which we've done a few mods to just to make sure everything's okay. So we've got to pressure test all them, and obviously pressure test the intercoolers once they come back. I'm going to ask my mate Chris while it's there to basically do the 2 charge pipes, so from the intercooler to the engine, and from here to the intercooler. So it's already in there. He's a professional welder. Why the hell not just get him to do them for the price it's probably going to take me. I'm just trying to push the build on fast, so if it means getting somebody else to do some bits and pieces, there's not many people I trust, but Chris I definitely trust. So I see he did this lovely job on the exhaust, so realistically he's the man for fancy welding. Getting there. Whether I hit the dyno in August, the more I think about it, I've still got a lot of work to do from the fluid testing. So I have 1 more radiator pipe to modify on the sides. I've got to modify the bottom of the radiator, the pipe that comes out of the bottom of the rad. The angle's not quite right. It's coming up to here. It's getting too close to the wishbone when it's on full droop. So I'm going to cut the pipe off and just angle it down a little bit nicer. And I have to weld a threaded bung on for the water temperature sensor. So yes, I have a lot of sensors. Technically, there's 2 water temperature sensors, 1 for each head. On the engine, there's a water temperature for the radiator. There's a water temperature for the intercooler system. There's water pressure sensor. But, well, if you can, why not? So, yeah. Last thing to really kind of the big thing to wire up is basically the dash switchgear and the dash itself. The dash, the screen is set is wired, but the indicator switches and all the warning lights and the shift light system isn't wired up yet. I have all the bits and pieces. I bought the extra plug that I need and bits and pieces for the center console, so that's done. I've just got to physically just wire it up. Got to make the second seat. I'll make the second seat while the car's away being welded. Once we've got the second seat, then the 2 seats and the steering wheel will go off to the trimmers. And once they're back, we'll get the trimmer involved to come to me and basically trim the dash panel and the top of the dash. So we'll ask him about whether it's worth trimming the inside of the roof. So we might put a skin of cloth over that just to sort of hide the fiberglass. But yeah, so lots of silly little small stuff happening, but lots of stuff going. Oh yeah, the rocker covers. Just to speed things up, instead of machining the billet ones that I have when I was started on, basically these are Brian Tooley Racing rocker covers, and they have dash 12 fittings on either end. Well, that's a dash 12. I need a dash 12 for my vent. It really made sense. It sped things up. It's probably 2 or 3 days machining to finish off my billet covers. So, and they didn't have silver. They're red and black. So we got red. And to be honest, I kind of like red now. So I was going to do black with red inlay on the script on my covers, but at the moment, you know what? It's one less thing to do. And again, if we're just trying to speed this thing up and get it ready for the dyno. Where it's going to go to the dyno, I've got lots of options, but it's which ones I trust or which ones I can get recommended. I know who I'd like to get it done. There's a couple of Mtron experts, but unfortunately they don't live locally. Yeah, I don't know. I've got to speak to them directly. At the moment, we're just messaging forward and back. I think one gentleman's not even North America, but he does flying quite a lot. The other two gents are in North America and M-Tron experts, so we'll see. Hard to do the setup online, should we say. You can online tune it once it's running, once we've got all the little headaches out the way, once we've got the engine braking done, sure, but to set up the ECU and get the best out of it to start off with, not trying to get the best horsepower, just trying to get the best setup temporarily. I think that's still got to be done by somebody locally. So we'll see. I'm not really pushing the horsepower limits of that motor while we're doing that kind of setup. We'll save that until we got somebody that I super trust, should we say. Do I trust anybody? I have no idea. Anyway, so yeah, car's about a week or so away from leaving home again for a short period of time, but it's, you know, one more stage closer. It'll come back with exhausts, and then I'm not far away from, you know, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks from doing all the fluids. Still hasn't got brakes, still hasn't got the rear brakes, still haven't got the Brembo handbrake calipers on yet. Haven't even designed the mounting bracket. So still lots of silly stuff to do, but we're getting close. Anyway, just nice to see it on the floor. I'll just scan round. Oh. I say that I can't get enough of that diffuser view. But that's just me. Having it elevated for a couple of months. Yeah, every time it hits the floor, you do forget exactly how low the damn thing is. Anyway, I think I'll speak to you all soon.